to the Farm with the Red Door. I'm really excited about the recipe I'm going to share with you guys today. This is one of our favorite recipes out on the grill. If you watch very many of my episodes, you will start picking up on the fact that we love to cook dinner out on the grill, especially in the summertime. And today, this recipe is not what you would generally think of something that you could cook on the grill. But we are going to make pizzas. We're going to make little individual flatbread pizzas. Now this recipe, it makes enough dough to make two 14-inch round pizzas. But I love to make this and just make small individual. Everybody can make their own pizza and put them on the grill. And so I am going to show you exactly how to make the dough and how to get these cooked out on the grill. So this recipe, it does call for white flour and whole wheat flour. If you can do it with straight white flour, but I like to have a little mixture of more coarsely ground whole wheat flour along with that all-purpose flour. So we're going to have olive oil, we're going to have grated Parmesan, thyme, the whole wheat all-purpose, salt, and a little bit of sugar. And so we're going to make the dough up, and then we're going to set that aside, and while that's rising, I'm going to prepare the toppings that I'm going to use for my pizzas. Now if you click the link below, you can pick up the printable recipe for these pizzas, and in that blog post where you find that printable recipe, I have a whole long list of really fun pizza toppings that you can put together. So you may already have your own favorite pizza, but if you want to see a list of about a dozen different combinations that are really fun to put together, you can hop on over there and check out that blog post. So what I have here is I've got water that is 110 degrees. Now you can feel it with your finger, I mean, if you're accustomed to making dough, but I've always loved having my instant read digital thermometer. And I boil some water and I mix it with a little bit of cold water, and then I just stick my thermometer in there, and when I see it gets down between 110 and 115, I know that it's ready to go. Then I don't have to do any guesswork. So what we're going to do is we're just going to sprinkle the yeast, the active dry yeast, over the water. And I'm going to put a little bit of sugar. I'm going to put half of the amount of sugar. This recipe only calls for 2 teaspoons of sugar, so I'm going to put 1 teaspoon. And it's just for the purpose of this sugar will feed the yeast while it's waking up out of its dehydrated state. So I'm just going to whisk it up real quick, and then I'm going to set this aside for anywhere from 5 to 15 minutes. Now, the way that you'll know that this yeast is ready to go is when it's become very bubbly. This active dry yeast, it's dehydrated, it's in a dormant state, it's asleep basically. And so the warm water is going to wake it up, and then the sugar is going to feed it, and it's going to begin to bubble and become very active. So right now it just looks like plain brownish water, but there'll be a thick layer of very bubbly the top will be very bubbly, and then you will know it's ready to go. So when this yeast is ready, I'll show you what that looks like in case you're not accustomed to working with yeast. Now you can make this in a KitchenAid, or you can do it by hand. On my tutorials, I generally do it by hand because not everybody has a KitchenAid. Not everybody has, a mixer in which to do their dough. And so I always like to do it in a bowl so that anybody can make it, because everybody has a bowl, everybody has a spoon, everybody has a set of hands. So we're going to do it in a bowl. So when this is ready to go, I will be back, and then we will continue on through this recipe. As you can see, this has got a few little bubbles because it got started right away, but this is mostly just water. There's not a lot of action here. So I wanted you to see what it looks like before, and then I'll give you a close-up of what it looks like when this yeast is ready to do its work. Our yeast is ready. It's got a good inch or so of bubbles. It's super active, and so we are ready to continue. So I'm going to add 3 cups of the flour first, and then I'm going to add that yeast mixture right on into the flour. And then we're going to add salt. We're going to add the rest of the sugar. I'm going to add dried thyme. Going to add the Parmesan cheese. Now, this Parmesan cheese is optional. You can actually leave it out if you don't want that in there. And then I'm going to add 1 cup of whole wheat flour. We're going to add a half of a cup of olive oil. It's going to give this a stir, get it well mixed. It's going to be a very wet, tacky dough. And then we're just going to add flour, the all-purpose flour. We're just going to continue adding that until it becomes a really soft, smooth dough. See, right now it looks more like a muffin batter. So we're just going to add the flour until it looks right. The recipe calls for, it says up to 5 cups of all-purpose flour, and then of course it's got the 1 cup of whole wheat. But that's just a general rule. You're just going to keep adding it until it looks right. I'm just going to get my hands in here. It's pretty stiff to do it with a wooden spoon. And just clean the sides of the bowl off, because we're going to let the dough rise right in this bowl. So I kind of clean the bowl up a bit. It's feeling really nice, but I can still feel it's sticking to my fingers. So I'm going to add just a little more flour. With this dough, there's no need to knead it for the 8 to 10 minutes like you do when you're making homemade bread. I'm just wanting to get everything mixed in. Maybe just a little bit more. We'll mix this in, and then I think we'll be good to go. You're just going to put an additional, maybe tablespoon of oil in the bottom of your bowl. Just spread it around. And then you're going to take your dough and form it into a nice ball. And you're going to put it in that oil, then flip it over. And your pizza dough is ready to go. We're just going to leave it. We're going to put a towel over the top of it, and we're going to let it double in size. That'll take about 45 minutes to an hour, and then we can start making our pizzas. While I've been waiting for the pizza dough to rise, I have been preparing all the toppings. And since we're having smaller individual pizzas, I always like to have a lot of toppings and everybody can kind of make their own creation. Hans and I tend to go for 2 completely different pizzas. He likes more of the margarita style pizza. He'll put pizza sauce down first, mozzarella cheese, the fresh tomatoes, fresh basil, send him some artichoke hearts. I tend to go towards a more complex flavor. I like the Greek pizza. And on mine I use pesto as my base. I don't use pizza sauce. I'll do pesto, and I've got feta cheese, Greek olives, artichoke hearts, purple onions, and a little bit of chili flakes. I do also sometimes sprinkle some oregano over the top of it. So it's just really fun to kind of come up with your own combinations. And so don't forget to click the link below to pick up this printable recipe. And I also wanted to mention that there will be a link below for my homemade marinara sauce. Sometimes we use a homemade pizza sauce, and sometimes we use my homemade marinara sauce. So if you like marinara sauce, go ahead and click the link below and you can pick up my recipe for that. I also wanted to mention that it's a free cookbook, a free PDF. You can copy it off if you'd like, but it's my free grilling cookbook. I've got 12 recipes. We love to do everything on the grill, and so I put together 12 of our favorite recipes for cooking outside on the grill. This is not in that book because I knew I was going to be making it and I would be having a printable for you. So you could print off that grilling cookbook, have a dozen recipes for the grill, print off this and add it right in there. And you've got a really nice solid cookbook for the grill. We've got chicken, pork, beef, I've got hamburgers, sliders, you know, like kebabs and steaks, and just a lot of really, really good recipes. So you're going to want to click that link below, grab the grilling cookbook, as well as this recipe and maybe my marinara sauce. I've got, well, let's see, we'll start with, we've got the pizza sauce, or you could do marinara sauce, and we've got the mozzarella cheese, and then I've got some artichoke hearts that I sliced in half. I've got some Greek olives, I've got feta cheese, I've got fresh basil, as well as pesto. I've got some little tiny cherry tomatoes cut in half. I've got some sliced purple onion, a little bit of chili pepper, and then I do have some oregano and parsley in case you people want to sprinkle that over the top, as well as some Parmesan cheese. So that's a lot of really fun toppings. You can come up with some really creative custom pizzas. Turned my grill on and I'm allowing it to preheat. I want to burn off everything that was on the grill the last time that we used it, and then I'm going to scrape it. And I want to take a minute to give you guys a tip on how we clean our griddle. We have a wooden paddle. It looks kind of beat because we've been using it for a long time, but it actually has the perfect grooves to go along the grill. The grate. But the reason that we use a wooden paddle, a lot of people use the brushes that have the little metal bristles, and I've mentioned this in another tutorial, I think when I was grilling my turkey, but I want to mention it again here. I don't use those because I have heard it is very rare that this happens, but it has happened to a few people, and I don't want to be that little 1 or 2% that it happens to. But those little bristles can fall off of the brush and they can be on your grate and you don't realize it. And then when you put your piece of meat on that little metal bristle can get up into your piece of meat, and then you can eat it and it actually gets stuck. It has gotten stuck in people's throat, and the doctors can hardly find it. It's so tiny, they can't, it's like a sliver in your throat, and they have a very hard time finding it. And on a couple of accounts that I read, they never were able to find it, and they had this irritation in their throat for, you know, for the rest of their life. And so when I read that, I thought, you know, that's not probably going to happen, but I'm not going to take a chance. So I threw out my brush with the little metal bristles, and I got this wood paddle. So I just bring my grill up to heat and I let it burn off for like 5 minutes, and then I just run this up and down the grate and knock off anything that's there. Now if you feel like you need to, you can grease your grate. Just get a paper towel and put some oil and you can grease it to help the pizza dough not stick. I don't generally have that problem, and so I'm not going to grease it, but feel free if you start having problem where the dough is sticking to your grate. So the trick to cooking pizza on the grill, it's using 2 zones, direct and indirect heat. So I'm going to explain to you really quick how this works. Direct heat is where it's basically having the flame on one side and then you turn it off on the other. So when the lid is down, if one of these, 1 or 2 of we've got three flames. So 2 of them would be on and 1 of them would be off. And you're going to place your pizza dough on direct heat in the beginning. It's just going to be a piece of dough, no toppings on it. Just a raw dough, and you're going to lay it on there and you're going to let it cook for about 2, maybe 3 minutes. It's going to give you those beautiful grill marks on the bottom of the pizza, and it's going to begin to cook that dough. And then you're going to take it out and you're going to oil the top part. So the bottom part is cooked with grill marks and then the top of it is still raw. So you're going to brush oil on top of the raw, and then you're going to flip it over. And so the raw is now on the bottom. You're going to put all your toppings on the top that it has the grill marks on it, because that part is cooked. And then you're going to bring it back to the grill. You're going to put it back on direct heat, and that's only going to be for a couple minutes. And that direct heat, it's going to if you cooked your pizza over direct heat the entire time, it would burn your pizza to a crisp. It would not be that golden brown pizza, it would be burnt. And then when you bit into it, the dough would probably still be doughy. It would be raw in the middle. So we're just going to put the pizza on for about 1 to 2 minutes to give it that golden brown with grill marks on the bottom side. And then we're going to move it over and we're going to leave it on this side, and there'll be no flame under it, but just the heat inside the grill. The heat is going to be about 300 degrees. It will finish cooking your pizza crust in the middle, and it will keep it from burning because there will be no flame underneath it. So cooking it on direct heat and then taking it out and flipping it over, putting your toppings on, putting it back on direct heat, and then sliding it over to indirect heat to finish the cooking. It will finish cooking the dough, and everything will become nice and melted. And then it'll take just a couple minutes, that you could take it off and serve it up, and it'll be done. So that is the trick to doing pizza on the grill, is using the 2 different zones, the direct heat as well as the indirect heat. Our dough is risen nicely, so now I'm just gonna pinch it down and deflate it. I'll let it rest for a couple minutes, and then we'll form little balls with it. Now I'm going to pinch off a piece of dough. It really just depends on how big you want your pizza. You just can kind of play with the amount, because it just really depends on how big you want your finished product. So I'm going to start with something about this big. It's a great idea to do it on a piece of parchment paper, because then when you're done, you can pick the pizza up like this and just carry it over to the grill. But if you're trying to carry a pizza just with your hands, it doesn't generally work. I'm just going to put a little bit of flour so the rolling pin doesn't stick. And then it doesn't have to be perfect. That's what's fun about these flatbreads. They always look custom made. They just kind of are irregular flatbreads. So don't worry too much about getting them into a perfect circle. Because we always have so many fun toppings, I like to make these small so that I can have more than one pizza. So this is about the size I generally roll them. Now you're going to want to brush this with olive oil or any kind of oil. Avocado oil is good. And this is going to give your crust a very golden, just a really nice finish. So we're going to carry this piece, and then we're going to flip it upside down. So this is going to be on the grate, and this is going to have all the beautiful grill marks. It's going to become golden brown. And so now we're going to move it over to the grill, because my grill is up to temperature and it's ready to go. So this side over here is off and this side is on. So we're going to put the pizza over here on direct heat. So it's the oiled side that's down. I'm going to close the lid and I'm going to let it cook for about 2 to 3 minutes. It's been a couple minutes, so I'm going to take a look at it. Oh wow, see how puffy and risen? It's super soft. I can tell that it's not cooked all the way through, but let's take a look at the bottom. Ooh, that's hot. Yep, look at that. That is a beautiful crust on the bottom. So now we're going to take this back over to the table. So this is now going to be the bottom. You're going to want to flip this over, and we're going to top the side that has the grill marks. And then this side will get grilled once it hits we put it back on. One thing I did notice is I position this, my grate has a circle right here. If you don't want it to look like that, position your pizza so that you're just getting lines. I mean, this is fine, no one's going to notice, but if you care about that and you want it to be very beautiful, then don't position it like that. I'm just going to top this pizza. I've got a little bit of pizza sauce, and the trick is I know there's always a lot of really good toppings and you want to load it up, but you don't want to put too many toppings onto a pizza, because what's going to happen is it's just going to be soggy. It's going to have a hard time cooking everything and making it crisp, as well as the it could cause the crust to kind of sag down between the grates. So tend to go lighter on the toppings. Just eat more pizza. Alright, I've got a little bit of cheese. I'm going to put some fresh tomato. This is more of a simple one, just a margarita style. And some basil. Righty, so we're going to get this back onto the grill. We are going to slide it onto the direct heat. So, if you notice, the side that was not cooked is now on direct heat. So we're going to let this cook for about a minute, and then we're going to slide it over to indirect heat. So when we close this, it's just mimicking an oven, and it'll cook just like it would in an oven. So we're going to let that go for about a minute, and then we'll slide it over. It's been 2 minutes. So we're going to take a look at the bottom. Yep, it's got nice grill marks. So now we're just going to slide it over to indirect heat, and it can just sit there until you are ready to eat it. It isn't going to become burnt because there's no heat underneath it. So you can keep cooking pizzas at this point and loading up your grill. I do want to show you 2 different tools. You've seen me using this one, and I am going to link these 2 tools on my blog post. So this is just a really wide spatula, and it works really good to pick up these smaller pizzas. I also have something called a pizza peel. And this would be really good for larger size pizzas, but you can just slide that. So if you picture having more of like a 14 or 16 inch pizza, 14 inch probably, this would work really, really well. So both of these tools I'm going to have linked in the blog post, which you can hop over there by clicking the link below. That'll take you into the blog post, and you can catch the recipe and all of the links for these tools. Hopefully this has inspired you to hop on over to the blog and grab my recipe and make yourself some pizzas on the grill. Invite some friends. Have a pizza making party where everybody can custom make their own pizza, and it's a really fun activity to do. If you love this kind of content, a lot of farm fresh, whole ingredient foods that is just delicious, then you're going to want to subscribe and click that little bell so that you'll be notified every time I post. I bring stuff weekly, so you're going to want to subscribe so you don't miss anything. And if you enjoyed this, I'd love it if you gave me a thumbs up, and go ahead and share it with a friend. And as always, go ahead and leave me a comment in the comments box below. I'd love to hear what you thought of this tutorial, and if you have any questions, don't hesitate to pop them down in that box, and I will help you out with any questions that you have. So hopefully we see you next week.